unmusical version, I'm going to be bowled over by the musical version. I noticed it was hard for you to keep from inflecting there, isn't it? It's yeah. Well, bravo, beautiful job. I think you know, the easiest place to start is the beginning and talk about the chaconne theme, if you want to call it that. Of course, it's very clear that he's divided this into two halves, two portions. And in each one of these halves, there should be one note that is, I believe, that is the high point note. And for me, it's where the rhythm is inversed, or inverted, I should say. The begins with a quarter note upbeat to a half note. Then you've got, in the first bar and the second bar, half note followed by a quarter, a half note followed by a quarter. Then you've got this on-the-beat inflection, which some textbooks I've seen label it a Lombardic inflection. It's almost like a Scottish thing, laddie or lassie, you know, giving an emphasis on the first syllable. Hungarian music often has this in it as well. But this is very slow and drawn out. So, la-dee, ah-dee, da-dee, ah, la-dee, whatever it is. La-dee-da-dee-ha. Now, I'm singing it with a great deal of emphasis in order to communicate the importance of this note. However, this should be done more with fullness of tone than with actual volume. So if you think of getting a full, rich sound on this one quarter note in both of these halves of the music, then we can relate them to one another. One of them is a note below the main pitch. The first one is E flat F. Ti, ho, da. The next one is La, di. I think the second one should be more than the first one, even though the first phrase is somewhat more elongated than the second phrase, even though if you count the last note, the full 2 bars of the last note, you've got an 8-bar phrase. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, yeah. But that last note, this just hangs on for 2 bars. So I think that this, what could be termed a shorter musical idea, da-da-da-dee-da-da, has to have a little bit more intensity than the very first statement. So let's try just that first 8 bars with an emphasis on the 3rd bar and an emphasis on the, what would that be, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th bar.
And more on the 6th.
More on the 6th bar than the 3rd. But all very subtly done. Say one thing. One real help when you're going to give an inflection, we all think give more, and I was guilty of actually asking for more on this note. But what you really have to think about, and I should have mentioned this at first, you have to think less on the note after. In order to add emphasis, that means you've got to slice off some emphasis from the note afterwards. So that F after, both of these are followed by an F. That F has to be so smoothly gone into and so softly played compared to the E flat or the G that you don't have to give so much on the inflected note. You actually take away from the uninflected note. All right, so now don't think about giving so much. Think about taking away from the note after. Much better. I think that the other thing we have to think about is range. We start with an E flat going to an F. And then this next interval going up to a C above. C, B flat. I really feel that that should be softer than la-dee, ha-dee. And then you're back where you started from skeletally, around the same notes. La-dee-da. So the real thing is just F, B flat. And the farther away you go from that, the softer will be. So I would, if I were you, I would try to hold in, all of you, I would try to hold in the C and B flat a little bit. Otherwise, high notes tend to stick out of a line, especially with wind players anyway. Just the nature of their increasing vibration, their higher intensity of vibration, you know, that C vibrates at a higher number of frequencies per second than the E flat F, which begins your phrase. So, la dee la dee. So it's a conscious holding in of the upper notes so that you maintain a line. Okay?
So we go one more time, okay?
Absolutely beautiful. I know that maybe some notes didn't come out exactly right, but that's absolutely the idea. And now we move forward. What we should do is probably just have the cornets from this point.
Okay.
The two cornets for about
okay. Yeah.
8 bars.
So right where you begin on beat 3, the two of you.
Very nicely played. Now we'll talk about these dissonances. Now, George and I have spoken about some of the concepts that I would cover in this class. However, we didn't talk about the 2 ways that you highlight a note. Some of these notes are ties that you have that go over the bar line, and they become dissonances when compared with the underlying chaconne melody. And one way to highlight is to give more, to play these with greater intensity, a little more volume. There's a second way that you highlight something, and that's to give less. And this is a very interesting concept, and it was something I would probably never have picked up on if I hadn't been fortunate to have John Delancey as my woodwind teacher in school. But there are many of his recordings, Baroque music on up through more modernistic music, where he has a tie that goes over a bar line, and he'll actually lighten up. And it gives a feeling almost of levitation at that moment. And then when he gets to the resolution note, which is usually a step below, it's even softer. So this takes a great deal of control in order to highlight a note by playing it less, because the resolution that follows has to be even less than the so-called highlighted note, which is played less. So here let's pick one of these tied notes that'll be normal. In other words, ti da da dum, ti da da dum, ti da 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 dum. So there's 2 of these, and there's the second cornet, which has the underlying voice, and also has this inflection. So what I would like to hear is the first cornet, I think it's first cornet, to give with emphasis more tone on the downbeat where you become a dissonance. The second cornet, I'd like you to play giving emphasis by taking away volume. T on the F, and then play the E as softly as you possibly can by sustaining through the F at that very, very soft volume so that the E comes out. All right, so we'll have a little positive inflection in the first cornet and what I might term a negative inflection in the second cornet. I think it's an important enough concept to talk about. Beautiful. And I don't know if you felt anything special happening there, but to me, this was very meaningful. That there's a positive inflection in the upper voice and what might be termed a negative inflection in the lower voice. And I actually felt something quite nice when you did it in bravos. It's very hard to do that, especially for the second, in that lower range.